Hello, everyone. I'm Greta Ernest, the FIT Library Director, and welcome to Playing with Dolls documentary screening and panel discussion. Tonight's event is part of our Love Your Library event series, which was created by the FIT Library nearly 2 decades ago to foster meaningful connections between FIT students, industry professionals, alumni, and authors. Our mission is to broaden our community's academic experience by introducing diverse perspectives and real-world insights. As part of our ongoing commitment to preserving and sharing knowledge, the FIT Library makes accessible the content of guest speakers and campus presenters through Archive on Demand, our very own streaming platform, which is available on the library's website. This resource features hundreds of hours of uniquely FIT experiences, curated and preserved for future generations of students, researchers, and historians. Tonight's program is being recorded and will be a permanent part of FIT's institutional history. It is now my pleasure to introduce Professor Stephen Cutting, a distinguished fashion designer and educator. I'm going to say some more things about you. Whose career in the industry began in the late 1980s. After earning his BFA from FIT, Stephen became the design director for the women's and menswear brand Philippe Monet. Over the years, he has designed for prominent labels including Kenneth Cole, Reebok, Darion, Perry Ellis, Larry Levine, Via Spiga, Boston Outfitters, and others. With more than 25 years of experience in the fashion industry, Stephen's career includes outfitting celebrities such as Beyoncé and producing high fashion accessories for brands like Nanette Lepore and Bland. Stephen's current teaching portfolio includes our very own FIT and Parsons School of Design. He has taught in an extensive range of subjects, including sketching, garment construction, fashion merchandising, and digital design, with a particular focus both on fashion and accessory design. We are very fortunate that Stephen loves our library, and he is a valued collaborator whose creativity and innovation have greatly enriched the library's visibility, programming, and collections. It is thanks to Stephen's vision and partnership that we are able to bring you tonight's exceptional event. So thank you, Stephen, and take it away.
Wow. You know, that was really great. Thank you, Greta, for, it's humbling, to be here. I've been here at FIT for over 30 years as an instructor, and each year it's still fresh. And I love it, and I see a lot of my students are here tonight, and it's great that everyone has shown up to show out, and that's a good thing. So it's just wonderful to see such an energetic and motivated group of people here tonight for this very special screening of Playing with Dolls. I want to thank the FIT Library and the Love Your Library initiative for extending this opportunity to our community. It's uplifting, inspiring, and sincere, encouraging to know that together we can create moments like this, and that's a great thing. This film, created by my dear friend and fellow FIT alum, Pearl Martin, is dedicated in Pearl's own words to open the mind of the authentic transgender person. And it's just so great that you made this film and that we're able to just share it and look it and screen it and just talk to you about it. It's amazing that Pearl made this wedding gown for my wife 32 years ago, and now it's just like full circle to come back again, so I love it. Playing with Dolls restores, secures, and widens our understanding of a community that faced accelerating changes with strength and courage. It informs and integrates stories that had too often been overlooked, while guiding us to recognize the effective, accurate, and lasting contributions of transgender women who shape not only the stage, but also the culture of New York City. And tonight, it feels like a full circle moment, like I said before. Who would have thought so many years ago, when Pearl and I were students here at FIT, that tonight we would stand together on the same stage and just share this celebration. So I just want to say, yeah. You know, it's a structure that's built on dedication, action, and clear expectations that now accomplishes results. Moments like this where we honor resilience, creativity, and legacy. We're building a legacy here tonight, and it's great that we can share that together. So we invite you all to just sit back, open your hearts, and enjoy this extraordinary film. After the screening, please stay for a panel discussion with some of the main characters featured in the film. So now, enjoy. What a great film. Congratulations. Very good. So now it's my pleasure to introduce tonight's host and moderator, a woman whose voice, advocacy, and artistry has helped shape the landscape of visibility, empowerment, and inclusion in New York and beyond. Chanel Lopez is a proud Afro-Latina transgender activist, public figure, and performer whose work continues to break boundaries and inspire change. She currently serves as the Deputy Director of LGBTQ+ Affairs for New York Governor Kathy Hochul, where she continues to champion equality, representation, and safety for the LGBTQ+ community statewide. For over 15 years, Chanel has been a leading voice for justice, from her work as a transgender community liaison at the New York Commission of Human Rights, to her time with the Anti-Violence Project, supporting as survivors and creating space for healing and advocacy. Beyond her leadership in public service, Chanel is also a performer, plus-size model, and host whose presence radiates authenticity, pride, and confidence. She has been featured in documentaries, media, and live performances that celebrate the richness and resilience of trans and queer culture. Her story and her spirit align beautifully with tonight's film, Playing with Dolls, a documentary that shines light on the courage and legacy of New York's transgender showgirl community from the 1970s through the 1990s. Please join me now in giving a warm welcome to a woman who embodies strength, grace, and visibility, Ms. Chanel Lopez. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Stephen and Jen, for and FIT for putting this together and showing Playing with Dolls. I watched the film before you all watched it tonight, and I actually cried because my mom was in there, Jessica Fox, and before I got into working in politics and stuff, I also was a showgirl. And so, I started my big break at Sally's when Caracol used to be one of the performers there. And she invited me one time to perform. So, and then from there I became an Esco Girls and a Crash Girls, and now I work in politics. So, what an experience, right? Let's all take a breath and sit with what we just witnessed. Playing with Dolls is more than a film, it's a restoration of memory, a widening of perspective, and a reminder of how community, creativity, and love have always guided us forward. As we move into the panel, I'd like us to stay open-minded, uplifted, and curious. Tonight isn't just about looking back at the nightlife and culture of New York in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. It's also about facing today with clarity, accurate assessments, and new perspectives that can inspire maximum results for our future. It is my pleasure to introduce to you our special guests, each who was featured in the film. And before I introduce them, I'm gonna go sit over there. So, my first panelist, I had the pleasure of meeting a couple of years ago. She was gonna be my godmother, but you know, things happen, but she's always gonna be my godmother no matter what. Sonia Martin is recognized as a New York City showgirl entertainer from back in the day, born in Puerto Rico. She is an active member of SAGE, representing Latina, trans women of the community. Please welcome Sonia Martin. Our next panelist is actually not only my house sister, but my sister. Her name is Ivana Black, an American-born but European-raised. She is a University of Florida alumna, actress, model, brand ambassador, and an entertainer. Please put your hands together for Ivana Black. Next, we have Beverly Lipscomb, is a small-town girl with big city dreams and aspirations. She is an avid reader and a dedicated follower of fashion. Please put your hands together for Beverly Lipscomb. And last, but certainly not least, our special guest, Kai Perlin Martin, Miss Pearl, was the driving force behind the documentary and championed this film from its inception. She is a graduate of FIT and has been a couture wedding gown and evening gown designer for over 45 years. Miss Pearl is also a vocalist, entertainer, and a documentarian. Welcome, Miss Pearl. So, panelists, here's question number one. Safe space and beyond the clubs. During that period, the clubs were clearly a focal point. But where else were you able to go to express yourself authentically, whether through fashion, performance, or just daily life? What new approaches or strategies did you find outside the club that gave you maximum results for your personal growth and community building? And who would like to answer that question?
Good evening, everybody. I don't know, because when I came to New York in '87, I was thinking I was a fashion model and all this other madness, a real true runway model, like Coco Mitchell and all the other girls, the real walking girls who can walk, not these little prints and beer can, whatever. So when I came here, it was just a whole plethora. It was so warm and wonderful. It didn't stop being warm and wonderful until Giuliani came in. But so Giuliani came in. Here I am. So Giuliani came in. Sally's was my safe space. When I used to go work, it was my safe space. But the world wasn't as violent as it is today. People weren't bombing buildings and things like that. It was safe. It was warm. So you could go anywhere. And from the hardest brick to the most beautiful girl, she was safe.
I think also during that epic time where you also had the balls too, the girls did their day-to-day living, also went to Sally's, which was the safe haven space. You had the working girls that you talked about, the working girls and the showgirls, but then you had the balls where, as Chicky spoke in private, she and I talked about way back in the day in the 70s, where it was the femme queens and it was all about costume, where the girls would come and just shine, you know, to get away from the reality of life, and they would come and just shine and just be their authentic selves. So that was one space, or one outlet, I could say, you know.
Well, in my times, when I was growing up, in those times, there were no many clubs, but there were house parties. So we would go to clubs inside the houses, and they would charge you at the door, and you would pay to go in, and then you would go in that house and get dressed as a woman and party. That was the way we used to party at that time. But then we used to find enjoyment getting together, the girls getting together, putting on makeup, hiding from the people that were abusing us or calling us names. So we were forced to go inside these houses to party because we had no other place to go.
It was a safe space for many of us.
Safe space.
That was our safe space for all of us, hiding from society and the cops.
And now we here.
Yeah, and for me, like, safe space is that place where you can relax your muscles, relax your mind, unpack, and just be yourself. So for me, my home was always my safe space, which is why when Javon was talking about the homelessness in our community, I can understand how it can be very hard, because home is where you're allowed to just be yourself and be free and let go. Because in moving from space to space, we have to tighten up and be a woman and try and hide and exist, and then till we arrive to the next safe space. So for me, the next safe space besides home would be all the clubs that I work at, because then I could once again decompress, relax my muscles, and just be myself.
Just want to add to
Go for it.
safe space in reference to transgender. When I first saw the Club Sally's and walked in, I had not transitioned yet. And I walked in, I went in with a friend, a gay friend that loved the girls, loved the whole scene and all of that. And I saw the unity of how the girls would interact with everybody and the love. And I just had never seen anything like that. It wasn't like that in the gay
we really
club.
looked out for each other.
Yes, and it wasn't like that in the gay clubs where I went, which was nice. You know, I always like to go to gay clubs where they had the male strippers and stuff, because that was the only thing that was going to keep my interest, along with my cocktail. So, you know, I always felt different. I never felt like I fit in there. First of all, I was very feminine anyway, naturally. And but I had a good time. We danced and everything. But when I saw the unity of the girls, and I said to myself, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is where I'm supposed to be. Dressing up at home in secret by myself, putting on makeup and dresses and everything. And that, in those days, being a fashion designer, I was the same size as the girls. Not quite a 6, but I was an 8. So I could fit the samples and all of that. You know, you become yourself when you're alone, and you just, you know, unleash, and nobody's there, no one's there to judge you. You become you, authentically you. So in closing, before you move on to the next question, that was the eye-opener for me, to see how the girls were in their world and they were authentically them.
Yes, thank you for that. Before I continue to question number 2, I do want to give a special shout out to Lee Soldier, who is my brother and also my house father.
Yes.
And was in the documentary. So if you get up, please. Lee. Also, it was his birthday yesterday.
Happy birthday. May I also add a special thank you to Lee Soldier, because when Beverly and I were talking about doing something, documenting the story we lived, and we were seeing Pose, which was wonderful, and these other documentaries, the Stroll and this and all of that, and they were based on the sex work type thing and all of that, which all of us had to kind of do, whether we liked it or not. We had to survive. But then there was the life and the story we lived. There was the glamorous side. The girls, which was in Midtown. You had the East Village, you had this, you had that. But there was a glamorous side that nobody had tapped into, where the girls were glamorous and did performances, drag shows, except they were transgender girls. And I mentioned it to Lee because he was involved in documentarians and different things, documenting things. And Lee was the road for us to get to where we are tonight, leading me into this one and, pointing out that one. Go speak to this one. Hold on, let me pull them over. They're going to work with you. And I want to thank you tonight on this platform. Thank you tonight for leading us here. And I love you.
Thank you, Pearl. So my next question is then versus now, right? So how do you compare those days of Midtown Club cultures with today's landscape for trans and non-binary youth? What has changed for better or worse? And right now, honey, with that president, I don't even know what to say.
Oh, God.
And what strategies or open-minded perspectives still guide you now in creating safe, affirming spaces? And in which ways do you clear expectations and positive reinforcement help young people today navigate identity? Do you want me to repeat that? It was a loaded question. Basically, how you compare the culture, the club culture from back in the days to now.
Well, I'm going to say this and then move on to the panel. Back then, the freedom was wonderful, and it could never come back because the people are not here anymore that created that whole magic and everything. And even though we had obstacles against us, the police were rough, they were crude, they were just horrible. They should have been criminals because they were just, well, some of them were. It was just horrible. But we survived it, and once we got into that venue and that door closed, we were in our world. So, the music was wonderful when you go all the way back, the fashion, the attitude, the pulse in New York City. And what made it all what it was, it was the red light district, anything goes. So all of that was going on, which is no longer here anymore. So moving forward, gentrification and all of that type of thing, it's different, but you can get together and be unified and make it happen with a new way, if that makes sense, in a new way,
Yeah, I just think that we're just very divided right now. I remember just history. LGBTQ AI is the acronym that we have now. But I think back then, I just remember that history. G was L was for the lesbians because it needed lesbian health care. Then G came along because the gay men had the health crisis. Then also the B came along because bisexuals felt excluded from the L and the G. And then the T came along because we realized that T didn't identify with the L, B, or T, or if they did, they still identified with T, right? So the acronym started off as access. All these different things was access to medication, access to housing, access. But now it seems like it's an identity. And then everyone has split off into their own little areas. Because I remember, just from the T perspective, it was just T. you were transgendered, right? And I remember that my journey, I started off as a G, and then I went through my queer space and identity space and everything and ended up at T, right? So if you look back into the early 90s, T was very powerful because it was the bigger bubble that everyone was in, and then all of a sudden people wanted to claim their different letters, and now this is why T doesn't have the power it used to have. And so
we still have the power, honey.
Well, you know what I mean. And so for me, I just wish that we could go back to a time when it was just the gay community, and then when the letters were just access to help and access to needs, and not identifying to pull yourself out of the group, because we're all marginalized, we're all family, and we all fought at Stonewall.
Yeah.
For me, when I started my journey, I never used to see gay guys. Like, it was like men, she, he, trans, guys that want to be girls, guys in girls' clothes. You were either femme or you were straight. At that time. But as time has changed and the culture has changed, we have grown to learn who's gay, who's femme, who's this, who's that, who's binary, non-binary. So we have to understand that we have to give these people a chance and try to accomplish, to come together for all of us to live a better world. Because time is changing and we also need to change. But the culture from then to now really has changed a lot.
Yes, very much so.
I will take, excuse me for talking so, I'll take the 70s, the 80s, the early 90s. It was so much warmer then. We didn't have cell phones. You didn't even know you needed a cell phone. The most you had was a pager or an answering machine.
And everybody's number.
We used to save the quarters for the payphone.
Yes,
When they
yes.
used to
And everybody was in the moment. Everybody was in the moment. Today, the designers, the clothing and stuff is just stuff piled on top of stuff. There've always been trans women. The way I found trans women was I was in church and they were talking about, oh, this used to be so-and-so's son and now he's a woman, he's doing this, that, and the other. And of course, I immediately made a beeline to where that person was to find out what's going on. So I'll take yesterday because today is just too, it's too much for me. It's too much for me and it's not enough also at the same time.
So we all know that in any community, segregation can happen, even within. Were trans women respected in gay clubs back in the 80s and 90s? And more importantly, are we respected now?
Sonia, you take that one.
Well, again, I was born before abuse. So again, I was respected at that time because I used to go to a lot of different clubs, straight clubs, most of the time straight. But then when I discovered the gay clubs, I started going to the gay clubs, I started going to places where there were just transgender women and men, because there was no such thing as the gay guy inside a transgender club at that time. But time has changed again, and well, to me, I always felt respected. There's many girls that have been disrespected, but there were always a time that somebody said, that's a she, he, or that's a he, or call you him. So, you get offended. But again, it's up to you to gain that respect.
Absolutely. Okay. I can remember when we had the hustler bars in Midtown, You know, there were hustler bars, and the boys, as I spoke about in the film, would come from all over the boroughs and everything. This was the red light district. This was where you came to make money. You got out of jail, you know, all pumped up and carrying on. Family done moved or got kicked out the apartment or something like that. You got off the bus from Rikers Island, stand in front of the Port Authority. You needed to make some money, so you went to the male strip places, you went here, then you went to the hustler bars. The gay men would walk back and forth the Port Authority and cruise you and carry on because you stood there to make $1 to get to your next level of living. So I can remember going into the, at that time there was Tricks, Hustler Bar. Cats was kind of like a little bit of everybody. Tricks turned into Stella's. We'll just start with Tricks and go in there, and you know, the gorgeous boys, I mean, they weren't worth 2 dead flies, but they were lovely. And you know, the more you drink, the better he's gonna look. And you didn't mind giving him $50, from $20 to $50 to have him for a little eye candy and some play candy and dessert for the evening. When the trans girls would come in there, you felt a resentment because the men would be like, what is she doing here? You know, and the straight identified hustler, his eye would go directly to her. And that would cause friction. You felt that. Not a lot was said. You know, one thing I do respect, I respect the time that they didn't get really aggressive. The gay patrons that were there, you know, the boys were there for them. They were there, the boys were there for them, you know. And they didn't get really nasty to the girls or anything like that, but you felt it. Like, why is she here? You know, and that kind of thing. And then you would hear stuff behind their back. So you did have that, but then you had also a nucleus of gays that would come to Sally's, sometimes Edelweiss, because we did shows, if you remember. We had shows for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Wednesday was male strip night, so the hustler boys would come and enter the contest for $100. Now, you didn't get the $100 on Wednesday, you had to come back Saturday and then try to fight and win for that one, and you end up with $200, but you got your pay on Saturday. So we had gays that would come and, you know, be a part of that, and they loved their favorite entertainers, you know, the girls and stuff. So it was a very small nucleus of gays that would come to the trans bars. It still was segregated to me when it came to trans and gays, so it was there. But it was there, you know, but everybody kept it cool. Remember when the girls would come and play pool at Stella's and all of that? You could feel the resentment a little bit, but the girls would come and, you know, but they kept it cute. So that was it. I just wanted to talk about that. Yeah.
Thank you, Pearl. Yep.
Yeah. You don't have something to say about that. First of all, I'd like to start off this conversation with, when you go into these different spaces, you know, when I got to New York City in the early 90s, of course, I got my information from elder trans women who were my seniors, and all of these women on the panel, we all hung out with elder women at one point in time to get all of our information, where we could go, where we couldn't go. So right now, today on this stage, there's probably about 200 years of trans history. Think about that. You have people who, close to 80, who maybe consulted people who were in their 50s or 60s, and that history passed down and passed down and passed down. So that's important to know about this panel, because we are a legacy.
Thank you.
But as far as accessibility, I get to be the villain in this one. We weren't really welcomed. I'm just going to be completely honest, we weren't. If you went to Midtown and you tried to go on one of the peep shows, we weren't allowed. If you tried to go to certain gay bars, we weren't allowed. There's a reason why you see in these clips that there are so many places that we were in that were trans-friendly, but they were like show bars, and we were allowed to come in for shows and then asked to leave afterwards. And so when you're talking about that, you're saying that we didn't have access to the entire gay community. So that's why we went to hustler bars, that's why we went to the strip clubs, that's why we went to show bars, because those are the one spaces that we were still allowed. And this also is a time when we still had to wear 1 to 2 pieces of male clothing. Remember that. So we weren't allowed in all the lesbian bars. We weren't allowed in gay bars. We weren't allowed in a lot of spaces. So we found the spaces that we could be in, and we made them home, and we made them a place where we could feel comfortable. So it's sad, but we're still here. And we made it through, and now the spaces are opening up a little, but you still get the resistance because in the gay and lesbian and bisexual community, which is perfectly fine with me, they think I'm a woman. So it's like, why are you here? So I still feel comfortable going out, but I know that they don't always appreciate me in their space. Because the wonder maybe is why, because they don't want me sexually, because it's kind of a sexual space and an energy that they don't necessarily want trans people in, and you can feel it. Because the one time they do want you in, going back to the 80s and 90s, is you're entertaining. We weren't allowed in your clubs to have fun and enjoy your spaces, but when you needed a fundraiser for HIV and AIDS, you called us to make money for you.
Thank you so much. No, go for it. Go for it.
I remember when I was 13 years old and I was in Philadelphia. There were only butch queens, flaming queens, and then drag queens. And if you were a flaming queen, they did not want you in the butch queen bars. And if you were a flaming queen, sometimes you would get into the drag queen bars, sometimes you couldn't, because sometimes the drag queens would be like, "What are you doing? What are you doing in here, little boy?" So I noticed that in the drag bars, they're always welcoming to everybody. Everyone can come in. But in the butch bars, no, not so much, not so much.
Still to today.
Yeah, still to today.
Still to today. Still to today, there's certain spaces that I'm not allowed in. And when I say that, I'm not even talking about New York City. I was in Amsterdam, and it's a men's only bar. And I'm trans, and I'm just like, okay, I kind of get it, but I'm part of the community, like really? I was there for Amsterdam Pride.
Well, you're telling the truth, because even in Montreal, you have a lot of those nude male strip things. I'm on vacation. I want to see all of that. You know, like I told you, I don't go. If I go to a gay bar, got to see the muscle boy on the bar and my cocktail, and that's going to make me stay. Pocketbook full of ones.
But
okay?
Wait, Pearl. So, but tell them also, like, they will let us in, but we have to pay the money to get in.
Yes.
Oh, so, yes, the gentleman, and if you're a gay male and you want to come in and see the dancers, they'll let you come in for free. Or they'll charge you $10. But if you're a woman or a trans woman, they want, what, $20 or $30?
Something like that. But
they'll upcharge you.
My experience was I was asked to leave, very nicely though. Your night is Sunday and some other strange night. They're going to give us the off night, of course. You know. And when I walked into this particular bar in Montreal, I just noticed all these eyes on me. I said, is it my outfit? What's going on here? And they just kept staring on me, and the fellas came over, and some of them were speaking French, madame, and I just went on and sat down at the bar, ordered my little vodka and orange juice at the time, and got my drink and carried on. And I was there for a good little while, and then later on came the manager, and he was kind of shaking a little bit. He says, how are you? I said, I'm fine. He says, I just want to tell you, tonight is not your night. I said, what do you mean tonight ain't my night? He said,
are there men not here?
Excuse me,
I
sir,
got my drink
miss.
and my night ain't tonight. And you know, he says, we have a night for the ladies and stuff, for the women. He said, I said, well, I'm transgender. He said, for the women. He was very polite. He said, so I said, should I leave now? Drink your drink. drink your drink. I said, I'm from New York. Have you heard of Splash Bar? This is when Splash in the 90s was really big, Splash Bar, and had all the male strippers and all the shows, and the shower. You saw the boys dance nude in the shower and all that stuff. He said, yes, you work and perform at Splash. I said, yes. So we talked for a good little while. He walked me down after I finished my drink down these steep stairs. He says, I'm working at a place called Cleopatra. Come see me Tuesday night, because I was there on vacation for about a whole week. I never really went, but he says, just because you can't come tonight, there's a drag bar down the block called Madou. And I went to Madou and made nice friends and everything. But my point is, although he was very nice and they were very nice, it still exists.
And I just a quick second. I don't mean to cut you off, but I have 2 more questions, and I'm sure the audience has questions. And we have a special question for Pearl that we need to get to.
Okay. Sorry, I get the rattling on. I'm sorry, y'all.
So
get me started. I get the rattling.
Say your piece real quick, and then, I'll move on.
I was going to talk about old drama. So when I was younger and I first moved here, I was like a size 6. I used to model and all this other stuff. And my friend Karen Covergirl, everyone knows Karen Covergirl.
Yes.
So she helped me get around the whole situation, honey. She took me to her house on 43rd Street. She got those little gauzes, and we tied her titties down, and she gave me a baseball hat. She said, girl, put on this baggy shirt. We go on to this gay club tonight.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
And we got in there.
So, our question, should I skip to the last question in the interest of time? Yeah? Okay. We could skip to the last question. So, I'm sure y'all all know up here, right? Y'all can talk a little. So in the film, we heard the powerful phrase, my husband, used again and again. Why was that term so important to the trans community during that time? Was it about discretion, results, required, or securing identity in a society that often denies to recognize us? So for each and every one of you who had a husband or have a husband, what was the meaning for you back in those days?
When I first heard that, and I heard that from trans women that had started before me, it was, the importance of it was security reasons, to know that you had someone that loved you, that adored you, also for protection. There were a few things, but to know that you had someone that was in your corner and wanted you or adored you for you, that was important.
Yeah, and as far as I understood it, it was more so playing to like the gender roles. You have a husband and then you have a wife, and it kind of...
The great American family.
Yeah, this is my husband, and then, okay, this is wifey. And it gives you, I don't know, that giddy self of feeling that, you have this husband that,
I think it made it more solid instead of saying boyfriend.
But the funny thing about it is it made it solid, but sometimes your husband's only for like a weekend.
Yeah.
Remember that?
And moved on to the next girl.
If he was nice and, that's my husband, but 3 days later, this is my husband. Wait, girl, that's not the same one.
He's my husband.
Yes,
Yeah.
as we call the tranny chasers.
Yeah, those are the
Always a
chasers.
lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, I have always had I've newly single for about 1.5 years now, but my husband and I were together for 12 years. And it felt like that. It felt comfortable having another half to me.
It's like Pearl says in the movie that talks about me and George.
Yes.
And he was my husband to me. He was maybe hard outside, but I felt secure with him. So I think the word my husband in some ways tries to give you security.
Yes.
And makes you feel like there's somebody there to protect you, to keep you from being hurt, or defend you when somebody upsets you, or curses you, or calls you a she, he.
Absolutely.
He was there to say, no, she's my wife. You understand? So, when he was locked away and he passed away and everything, after a few years, I started living again with this person that she knows and everybody knows. And I call him my husband because he has given me love, he has given me security, and he shares everything in my house. He shares his life with me, he shares his family with me, and that's what I call my husband. And that's what I think any woman calls their husband, you know? So that's what that word, my husband, means to me. Security and love.
Can I just add something as you mentioned about George? Please share with us, while he was locked up, because a lot of people didn't know that George was also an author. He wrote many books.
With George?
George. And then there was something written about you.
George, he didn't know when we first met that I was a transgender woman. So he became infatuated and we started living together and all this till he went and did this big robbery. And I was involved.
Yeah, you wasn't involved. You was home. I remember. She wasn't involved. She made that very adamant in the film. She was home.
But then, again, I wasn't involved. But when I was looking at the TV and I saw this happening, like in my head, I said, this has something to do, because he said, I'm going to get the big one. I'm going to bring you what you want to have your surgeries or have this or have that. But I never thought that he was going to go, that he belonged to this Black Panther party and that I was involved with them and didn't know them, but they used to come to my house and they used to see me, and he wrote a book and he talks about me, and to this day I'm still saying, my God, I went through all this, and this I call my husband. But he was all that outside, but it was my husband.
I was in a relationship 2012.
My relationship with him was wonderful.
Was wonderful.
He was a wonderful man, and his family was wonderful, and his friends were wonderful to me, but they didn't know the tea at the time, so I have to keep very low profile, because if they found out, they would kill me.
Those were the days. That was the time.
That's how it was back in the days.
I just want to say, my first husband, 2011, lasted for about a couple of years, 3 years, but he struggled with it. Had come out of was in a divorce, moved from Michigan, was here, trying to find work and everything and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of times, I think the reason why it doesn't last long like it should, even though the love is there, the compassion is there, is that a lot of straight identified guys deal with the psychological problem. There's a psychological thing. And that's what I think happened in my reality. And we're still very good friends. He's getting ready to get married to a cisgender woman now, but we're still friends. When he comes into town, he wants to see me and all that kind of stuff. And I still get them butterflies in my stomach and all that, because we shared a lot of time together. And I had fallen in love with him and still love him as my friend. I won't say I'm in love, but if I call on him for anything, he's there. And we became good friends. We shared a lot. I shared a lot through the hills, through the valleys, all of it. So, you know.
I just want to say one little last thing. And when it comes to like husbands, and we talk jokingly how we don't have them very long. And when we talk about clients and tricks and stuff like that, trans women go through loss so much. So you have trans women who are working girls or who have husbands who they've been with for years and years and years, and they can't be open about who they are. And then, like you said, you're watching television, you see a news article, this person's dead, this person just died, they're having a funeral, and you can't grieve. You are not allowed in the room. You're not allowed in the building. And that is hard. We deal with grief in the most quiet and personal way, because when he's gone, he moves on with his life, and they may not know about that part of his life. And if he were to pass, that love is still there, and I'm not allowed to grieve.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Miss Pearl, are you ready for this question?
I reckon so.
What was your experience like here in FIT? And how has it been moving forward?
What's the other part? I'm sorry.
And how has it been moving forward? Like, how has it been?
Okay. My experience here at FIT, we going back 45 years ago. I was a skinny little feminine boy from Riverhead, Long Island. You know, big dreams. All I knew was Yves Saint Laurent, Givenchy, you know, Pierre Cardin, all of those, because that's what I saw. And those days, if anybody remembers, the magazine, but it was the big newspaper type in color and all of that. And I remember seeing it at the West Hampton train station, because we didn't have that in Riverhead, and I was taking the train to come into the city. And I could always draw, I could always sketch, and I could sew as a kid. So my parents had got me a sewing machine, I think when I was about 11 years old. So I knew, you know, family members would tell me about this fashion school, this FIT kind of thing, and I made up my mind right then and there. Didn't know nothing about it. I'm going there. Well, I got my interview, I got accepted and all of that, and it was an experience. I mean, down the road, I was able to become a couture wedding gown designer and evening wear designer. I owe all of what I've learned and put it to use into the reality of my life from FIT. And I want to thank both of my professors that trained me, which they're long gone now, which was Charles Contrary, Professor Charles Contrary, who's dead and gone, and Wallace Slows, Professor Wallace Slows, trained me. I kept in touch with them even when I started working in the industry. And it's been wonderful. I mean, it was a lot of hills to climb and valleys and all of that. You know, it wasn't easy for designers of color in those days, so I'm just gonna tell the truth now. You know, I ended up in the bridal industry, which was a tiny nucleus at that time. It was mom and pop type stores, nothing like now, where everything is over in China and manufactured and this one is couture and that is couture, and you look in the inside and you go, okay, all right, with all these narrow stitches from the machine, ain't no handwork, it's couture, all right. But that's what it is, you know. I was around when everything was by hand. You had to do it. There were times where I couldn't even afford a sample maker, and I had to cut the gowns out on my floor in my studio, put it together, pray to the Lord that I could sew straight and make sure it was perfect, because I would go to the stores and look at how the dresses were made in couture fashion. And I'll never forget who took me on and took me under their wings was Miss Hedda from Kleinfelds. At that time, they were in Brooklyn, based in Brooklyn on 5th Avenue and 85th Street or 86th Street, way out in Bay Ridge. And I had an interview to go there. I took a sample. She loved me right from the start. And I said, I don't have a showroom, Miss Hedda. I make my dresses, you know, at my little place. She said, let me tell you something. She said, I don't care if you cut them on the kitchen floor. When you bring this dress here, just as long as it's beautiful. And I went to running after that. And they saved my life. They put food on my table, because I got to the level where I could do private label for them. And nobody had those dresses but them, you know. And they would pay me in advance. I always had a little money in my pocket, child, especially when it was time to go to the bar to see the male strippers. You know, paid my rent, though. I paid my rent, but when I paid my rent and everything else, what was left was for me and the bars and the male strippers, honey. So it was wonderful, and from there I went on to other places and started doing couture for them. They had a department in Kleinfeld at the time called PM, and Miss what was her name? Oh, I can't think of her name. The buyer for that department, and another her associate was named Dorothy. I can't remember the last name, and I worked with them. So I always had a little piece of money, you know, coming through and all that. I can remember going to an interview for Halston, and I just felt I wasn't going to get it. And I didn't get it, but it was difficult for us of color in those days to get into the big houses. What we did was, I don't know who did it, who started the trend, we had to go to Europe to work if you were of color and sleep on somebody's floor and get up to go to work and got paid once a month. Get that experience, get all of that, get all that exposure. Come back to the States, come back to 7th Avenue, and that's when I said, oh, you work for, really, Givenchy. Okay, and you got the job. So we had to, if you were of color, and I mean Latin and black or whatever, you went overseas, worked over there, struggled, came back, a couple of years, not just 1 year, you were over there for a few years and got you a wonderful position for Ralph Lauren and this one and that kind of thing. So that's how it was for me. Nowadays, it's just wonderful. I'm retired and I'm just gliding through, just having a good time with it. I can do a custom dress. I still do private label for some clients, but it's been a journey. I don't regret anything. And when you go through struggle and hardship, it just builds your character. You become better and better and better, you know? So I'll pass that on to the young folk. Get turned down 1,000 times. Keep on going. Keep on going. And at the end, there's the pot of gold.
Thank you so much. So I hope you were all paying attention because we're about to, you know, start the question and answer from the audience. But before we go to question and answer, I do want to give a shout out to, I'm not the only trans woman in politics. I also want to give a shout out to my aunt, Kim Watson,
oh, yes,
who works for the Public Advocate's Office, Jumani Williams. And Kim Watson was also very instrumental in getting many of us started on hormones.
Wonderful.
Years ago, when no one else wanted to give us hormones. Yes. So, who has a fiery question? Yes, go for it. Huh?
Are those microphones for the question?
Go for it. Yep.
Are those
You
microphones?
need a mic? You want a mic?
It doesn't matter as long as everyone can hear. Obviously, like, fashion is a huge staple of showgirl culture, and it has a huge. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Obviously, like, the fashion is gorgeous and a huge staple of like showgirl culture, and has had a huge impact in, like, you know, mainstream society as well as inversely. How has, like, societal struggles, politics, and, like, the economic trouble, like, throughout the years really impacted that in terms of costume and your own personal, like, fashion?
I mean, well, when you talk about, like, spaces like Sally's and Gigi Barnes and all that, one thing that is not talked about is how many designers used to come to those venues to see the shows,
yes,
because we were so creative and we would create our own costumes and our own looks. So I think a lot of time what you're talking about is with the politics and the culture we have now, a lot of people are scared to come back in those spaces and do, like, the research for it. You know what I mean? Because, you know, Halston used to come, Ralph Lauren used to come. They used to come
Terry
to these
Mugler
shows.
used to come, yeah.
And Terry Mugler, and, like, what's his name?
Versace's been to Sally's.
From France. Jean-Paul Gaultier.
Oh, yes.
So they come because we would have, like, different categories for our shows, and we would just create these elaborate costumes. So even for myself, I design all of my costumes. I just go to designer, and because I can't make them, and say, hey, this is what I'm looking for. Can you do this and do this? And sometimes you guys look at me like I'm crazy. It's like, how do you do that? I was like, I don't know. It's in my head. Get it out. And so that's why they used to come to our shows, because we would think of the wildest things just to impress you guys and have a good show.
I mean, even with celebrities, Madonna would come to Sally's to get inspiration. That's how she got the song Vogue. She'd go to the balls, the voguing balls and all of that. But many times Madonna has come to Sally's and would experience the magic in the transgender bars and everything, you know. Lots of creativity came out of those transgender spaces. You know, that was our world, that was our magic. And many of them were great, past and present, great makeup artists and hairstylists and just bubbling with creativity. Just bubbling.
I won't attribute it to me, but I think it may have something to do with me. But I had this one costume I wore at Two Potatoes. So a lot of dancers and backup dancers and stuff come to a lot of the shows, and they'll come because they want to see the shows. So I had this jumpsuit made, and it was half shoulder, one sleeve, and then I had this pasty on my breast. And Jose Extravaganza made it. And we were like, oh my God, this is gonna be so risque. Oh my God, it's gonna be cute. So I go out and do this whole fabulous number. It's made out of snake skin and all this other stuff. So, you know, dancers, everyone's around. We don't know who's around watching the show. A couple weeks later, at the BET Awards, little Ken's has on the jumpsuit with one pasty. And I called Jose, Jose! She said, girl, I saw it.
Yes.
Speaking of, speaking of creativity, there is someone in our audience, in the room, Layla Lansing. Can you please stand? Who is a wonderful entertainer, trans entertainer, bartender, vocalist, beautiful voice, comes up with the beautiful. I think she loves the '60s mod look. She's always doing something creative with that. Creativity is here in the audience. And this is how we make our shows special and magical, and the themes. We've always been creative, all of us. Always.
Thank you so much. Anyone else with a question? Yes, go for it. Oh, we'll have the mic.
Are your students going to get extra grades for this? They get points? They get points for asking questions?
We didn't know about that, but I mean, we'll take them. But hi, I thought it was really, it is really crazy to see now, especially like you guys had talked about the almost like exclusivity that the gay community has split into, and it is very like, very, very noticeable. I'm from Texas, and the gay culture there is very like, it's a bunch of like cowboys who want to see other like Ken doll men in the gay clubs. And when you said that you would step into the club and feel everyone look at you, like that's how I feel back there. And like I have people asking me if I'm a boy or a girl back there, like just based on how people are. And it's like coming here is so different, but still you feel like that exclusivity of like you're too femme to be with this space of gay men, but you're also not femme enough to be with women or with the girls. So it's like, how do you feel that we can battle this exclusivity that's been coming up and driving people apart and making people feel extra alone?
Well, I'm not sure because I'm not in the club scene too much anymore. I like my little lounges and my little dive bars if I need a nice glass of wine. But we also did have that back in the day when the city was a melting pot of all types of clubs and venues. The leather guys, this type of guys, the upscale, you know, very well-to-do gentleman townhouse on the east side, because you had the east and the west. So you had all types of little nooks for everybody, you know. It's just, that's the way it was, you know. And then we had our trans bars, which I'm so grateful for that. We don't have them anymore. We got one or two right now. But it was always like that, you know, always like that. And if you went into the lesbian girls had their bars, which they didn't want any gentlemen in theirs. They didn't want no gay man in there. And
sometimes not even us in there. Sometimes they didn't even want us in there.
Yeah, if you were passable enough, you might slip through, and then they find out, then they be like, what you doing up in here, you know? So, but New York has always been like that, which I'm grateful that we had different things for different folk, you know, at that time. To bring it all together, I don't have the question for that. Go ahead.
I mean, generally speaking, I think you're doing the right thing just by what you said. I think that what I have decided to do is just invade their spaces and just be present in the space and bring your friends and be present in the space, because after a while they're just going to have to accept it and get used to it, because that's what it was like when you went to a place like Limelight and Cafe Con Leche. Everyone was there. Everyone just came in and just had a good time, and you didn't think about who was who and what is what. And so I could say this generation, I'm not an elder, I would say I'm a legacy, but I have been on this earth for 55 years. So I have watched it happen, right? But I think this is a time where we have to be, we can't just accept it anymore. You have to just bombard them. You have to invade their spaces. You have to stand your ground. Even when she was at the bar, she still finished her drink. You still have to put it in their face. And she was given an idea of where to go next. I think the problem is they're so used to not having everyone in their space. We have to remind them that it is everyone's space.
Also, let me just throw this in because I forgot all about it. I had to go back into time. We had big nightclubs, the Studio 54, the Xenons, the this and that. Everybody was welcome in those spaces. You know, so we did have that. The mega nightclubs are not anymore, as far as I know, in New York. That scene is gone. But we did, excuse me, Lee? Not here in the city. Yeah, right. But we
actually, you can go to Queens, honey. It's very eclectic in Queens, honey.
Chanel, can you give Lee?
Oh. Well, wait. You have a question? Okay. After your question, then you go. Okay.
I just want to say, Ms. Pearl, thank you for sharing your story, and everyone on the panel. I knew you as Keith, fierce fashion designer. I missed you. I left the city, I went to Europe, I came back, and I was like, now I know why. You are living your life. God bless you.
I love you so much. Stand up, Coco Mitchell. This is a legendary runway international fashion model. When I had started my business in 1984, I can remember doing a test shoot with her in my wedding dress. Look at that body. Look at her. Coco Mitchell, legendary. Worked for everybody. Givenchy, Saint Laurent, all of them. And this was in the 80s. This was the magic. This was the time. I love you back. God bless you too. You look fabulous, baby. So go ahead, Lee.
Yeah, I wanted to put a few things in a different perspective. For myself, when I first started out in nightlife and things in New York, I was married, living a straight life, hip hop. I grew up in the Bronx. My introduction to nightlife and going to clubs and becoming a club kid came through the girls. I met a girl. She introduced me to going to Better Days and going to the Garage and then going to Sally's. Had two places. It was Sally's, the first Sally's, and then it was the second Sally's. And so the girls became very comfortable with me. So when they would go to the little spot on 42nd Street, the little hotel, you know, to do the couple of hour thing, they would ask me to walk them over there, you know, and if the guys didn't act right, act like they were trying to rob them, they would be like, you hit them high and I'm gonna hit them low, and we're gonna take it and we're gonna keep it moving, you know. Yeah. So I became very close friends with the girls because that's how they were my first opening to everything. The 80s was very different. So New York is always, people say it's a melting pot because we did have so many spaces. However, this melting pot has always been segregated, and I think that that is such a misunderstanding. The girls were here, the boys were there, the leather guys were there, and I don't want to offend anybody, but the girls all called their spaces tranny bars, right? So that word today seems to be very offensive to people, but they were tranny bars back. They called them tranny bars. And it's still that way today. I have so many girls I run Black Pride. I work with a lot of the lesbian promoters, and they're always telling me to come there. Child, if I go there, they'll stop me at the door and say, you are not coming into this space. It's still that way. It's just, difference is those places are gone. We have conservative politics. New York used to be the city that doesn't sleep. It is dead. You walk up and down here in New York and Times Square and all these areas, quiet.
Dead.
It is dead. It was always life. There was always a place to go.
All the time.
All of the clubs that we used to go to, then I can name them because I've worked in all of them, they're gone. The places are gone, and they've pushed us to the outer boroughs, out into Brooklyn, into all of those spaces, and the predominantly of those spaces, we get a night or two. Right? So the LGBT community, we're fighting for space again. We're fighting for that. And so in the midst of that, we noticed that now we have also found ways to identify each other, right? We've expanded on people's right to self-identify who they are. And so that has also made us split even more because people are going to find their tribe. They're going to be in spaces that make them feel comfortable with however they identify. So it's a good thing. It's also a sad thing. As someone who has lived in North Carolina where there was one bar and everybody went to that bar, or you go to other places and there's one gay bar, the girls, the guys, and everybody's there, that's not New York story. It never was New York story. And that's the sad part of the history. People think they're coming to New York and you're going to be in one space and see everything. It's not that way. You find who you're going to find and you find your way. And it's great that we do have such diversity, but a lot of that is dying. Conservative politics, Giuliani killed that a long time in the 90s. Killed it.
Thank you so
I just want to add real quick to the tranny bars. Now, before the word tranny came up, the bars were called, amongst the gays and amongst whoever, those that the straights or didn't straight identify, didn't know, drag queen bars.
I was going to say, they didn't even use the word tranny back in the day.
No, it was drag queen bars.
Everybody
drag
was
queen.
Right.
And a drag queen that a gay man does it is an art form. But we also, as trans women, did drag too. But drag trans is a way of a lifestyle.
Yeah, because if you remember, historically speaking, the only way that we could dress up and be women and be able to be in the spaces is if it had a cabaret license.
That's right.
And so we would always go to the drag bars or the show bars because we were allowed to dress up as women or live as women or be as women because it had a cabaret license.
And the cabaret license wasn't even created for that. That was something that the mayor pushed for nightclubs to allow dancing, to put controls on it. Because as you know, they lifted that, and nothing still has changed. They got rid of that. Those were old laws from the 1920s and the 30s.
So we have time for one question, and then I'm going to give it to Junior. Ms. LaBeija.
It's not a question.
Okay.
It's more of a clarification.
Go for clarification.
And what I mean by that is Pearl, Beverly, Ayana, Sonia,
Chanel.
So number 5.
All the above.
I was raised in Harlem, New York City. I am now 68 years old. I was on my own since 14 years old. I remember the Jewel Box Review.
Oh, yes.
Pearl Box.
Pearl Box Review.
Phil Black, Alan Marshalls. Rockland Palace. La Linji Wong. Pierre Wong. When it came time for Sally's, the Grapevine, the Boiler Room, Tiny, Maruti, Myra, I was Dorian Corey's bag carrier for 10 solid years.
So you carry that trunk, huh?
You didn't call it. I'm going to give you a smidgen of that. It wasn't called the trunk. It was called, like they said, the magazine cover, the mummy. Now, when it came, fast forward, what has happened, and you hit it on Sonia, and y'all hit it on it. We talk about, y'all talk about fashion, the couture gown. Yes. Now it's called high fashion versus luxury. You talk about prostitution, it's called contributions. You talk about Giuliani. That was an error. It was not Giuliani. It was Mayor Koch, because me, Grace, Candy Stevens was down in the Anvil dungeon when they told Mayor Koch that GRIDS, the gay-related immune deficiency syndrome, was in the leather bars, the Crisco bars, when you put your fist in the Crisco, whew, was in the village. I'm talking about the days when Marsha P. Johnson would walk the pier in her Maharishi flowers, and they would gawk at her. But you also, when you know the history of Stonewall,
Yes.
my sister punched an Italian mafiosa in the mouth. And you know what happened next week.
Yes.
Yeah. Don't forget the little cop, I'm not going to mention his name, he may still be alive, that all the girls had to run from Peter Rabbit's, the rock bar, the bear bar, slide under the car, around the Witch Queen for their very life. Right? The beautiful headdresses and bugle beady gowns and the chain beady gowns and all those gorgeous, Bob Mackie wasn't out there. Where did we have to hide them? Like you said, we had to go to somebody's house to get dressed to be accepted. So fast forward. This is what happened between then, and I love the way you said, between then and now. Then, we were tolerated, and y'all make sure we were celebrated. Now, we are visible, but we are now exploiting one another. And the reason why I can say that and stand before you make these statements, because I am a living pioneer, icon, trailblazer, taught in universities, Junior LaBeija of Paris's burning, 14-year-old child raised by a trans house, LaBeija. Raised.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you a parable. Remember in the Ten Commandments when they was killing the firstborn Hebrew sons? And she took her child and put it in the basket and sent it to Egypt to live. I was 14 years old, suffered severe domestic violence, and was given single-room occupancy, emancipated minor. And when I got my single-room occupancy on 123rd Street and Lenox and Fifth Avenue, I went around the corner to the Jack's Restaurant and met the entire LGBT community under the methadone maintenance. And they said, oh, this is a little FIT, fag in training. See, feel something?
That's what they used to say. That's what they used to say.
FIT, fag in training. Right?
Fags and
And I
training.
stand before you, and I'm going to end with this. And Chanel, Sonia, Ivana, Beverly, and Pearl. I, Junior LaBeija, is the first icon in ballroom history of the major that is going to Broadway next year at Gus the Theatrical.
Yes. Yes. So get them tickets for that for Cats.
The Calico Ball.
I need my ticket.
I saw the Calico Ball, and
I thought it was
genius
amazing.
in it. I cried.
And this is why I stand before you. Y'all are the ones that gave light to the darkness. Never forget that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Junior. God bless
So,
you. Junior LaBeija.
I just want to say before we finish, thank you to each and every one of you for, being here, being present, putting this documentary together. This was amazing. I watched it the other day, and I actually cried because so many memories. But I also want to give each and every one of you a round of applause for being here and being a part of history. So on that note, love you guys. Get home safe. I think we got time for some pictures, right? Like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And have a good one.
Want to thank Professor Stephen Cutting and also the wonderful
Shout out to Stephen.
Jen Brady. Come,
Professor
mother, come up here.
Professor
You
Stephen
were wonderful.
and Jen,
Oh, God. Who put
guiding
this
us through the
together.
whole time. Yes.
Love you forever. And thank you again. And thank you to everyone for coming out humbly from my heart. Thank you.